The champagne flute trembled in her hand as the jet cut smoothly through the night sky. Laughter and conversation filled the cabin, the kind of polished sound that only came from people too wealthy to fear turbulence. On board were investors, journalists, and influencers invited to a sky-high demonstration of the newest luxury aircraft. Cameras flashed, deals were whispered, secrets were traded like stocks. Then, without warning, the pilot's voice cracked through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing silence." The door to the cockpit burst open. The pilot stumbled out, his face drenched in sweat, eyes rolled back. He collapsed in the aisle with a sickening thud. For a moment, the world stopped. Passengers screamed, phones dropped, glasses shattered. One man lunged forward, shaking the pilot, but it was no use, his chest barely rose. The flight attendant's voice trembled through the loudspeaker, each word cracking with desperation. "Is anyone here a pilot? Please, we need help, now." Panic erupted. A woman clutched her pearls. Someone began to pray. Another fumbled with the emergency manual, flipping pages with trembling fingers. The luxurious cabin that moments ago smelled of caviar and champagne now reeked of fear. And then it happened. The cockpit door creaked open again. A shadow moved inside, slow, deliberate. A figure stepped forward, a woman in her mid-30s, her face gaunt yet striking, eyes wide but calm. Her clothes were worn, not the designer suits of the passengers, but faded fabric, dirt still clinging to the seams. The room froze. One journalist whispered, voice trembling as though he'd seen a ghost. "That's not possible." A second voice, sharp with disbelief. "She's dead. She died 7 years ago." Every head turned. The name spread through the cabin like wildfire. She had been declared lost at sea after a violent storm had torn her small plane apart. Her body was never recovered. Her husband, a powerful CEO, had mourned publicly. Her funeral had been televised. Her daughter had cried on live news. The world had let her go. And yet, there she was. Alive, standing in the cockpit. "I can fly it," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Move." Nobody argued. They parted like waves before her. She slid into the pilot's seat, hands trembling only for a moment before they settled firmly on the controls. Her gaze locked on the blinking instruments, the endless sky stretched beyond the glass. Behind her, the passengers whispered in terror. Some thought she was a miracle. Others, a curse. One man filmed on his phone, muttering, "The world won't believe this." But she didn't care. Her focus was razor sharp. In that instant, the past 7 years didn't matter. Where she had been, how she had survived, why she had vanished, all of it remained a mystery. The only truth was this: if she failed, they would all die. The engines groaned. The plane tilted. A child screamed. She pulled the controls. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes narrowed. For the first time in 7 years, the woman considered dead was not hiding in shadows. She was alive. She was in control. And she was about to change the fate of everyone on board. The cabin held its breath. The world had thought her gone forever. But tonight, she returned. The jet trembled as if the sky itself was testing her. The passengers clung to armrests and each other, staring at the woman who had returned from the dead. Her fingers flew across the controls, adjusting switches as though she'd been born in a cockpit. But behind her calm exterior, her heart pounded. 7 years in hiding, and this is how the world finds out, not in silence, but in fire. A sharp beep echoed from the instrument panel. Altitude dropping. Fuel consumption unstable. She adjusted, fighting gravity with everything she had. On the ground, news stations scrambled for updates. Satellite feeds tracked the private jet as it descended erratically. Screens across airports, homes, and phones glowed with breaking news banners. CEO's demonstration flight in crisis. Pilot down. Passenger attempting emergency landing. In one quiet suburban living room, a 10-year-old girl sat cross-legged on the carpet, clutching a teddy bear that had grown ragged with age. Her wide eyes were fixed on the TV. She recognized the plane instantly. Her father, the CEO, was on that flight. He had left that morning, kissing her forehead, promising he'd be back by dinner. The reporter's words blurred in her ears. "A woman has taken control of the aircraft, eyewitnesses claim she resembles." The girl gasped. She leaned forward, so close to the screen her nose almost touched it. It couldn't be. The woman looked like the faded photographs that hung in the hallway. The woman in the family portrait she kissed goodnight sometimes, even though she'd been told she was gone. "Mom," she whispered. Rain hammered the ocean like 1,000 war drums. Lightning split the sky, illuminating a small plane tossed like a toy between black clouds. Her mother had been at the controls then too, fighting the storm. She was supposed to return from a charity mission, just hours away from home. The final words transmitted over radio were faint, almost drowned in static. "Greater than, tell my daughter, I'll always find my way back to her." Then silence. Days later, debris washed ashore. No body, only wreckage. The world called it a tragedy. The CEO, broken yet stoic, held a funeral without remains. Cameras captured his tears, the tiny hand of his daughter gripping his, and the casket lowered empty into the ground. That night, the little girl asked, "Daddy, will Mommy ever come back?" And he said the only words he could force through his grief. "No, sweetheart, she's gone forever." And yet, here she was, flying a jet full of strangers, carrying the truth like a storm inside her. The passengers whispered frantically, "She's a ghost." "No, she's real. I can see her breathe." But how? Where was she all these years? She ignored them. Her mind swirled with memories of caves, of people who had hidden her, of shadows that had chased her when she refused to disappear quietly. But now wasn't the time for explanations. Now was survival. Her voice cut through the chaos, sharp as steel. "Brace yourselves. I can't promise this will be smooth." The plane bucked downward, engines screaming. Drinks spilled, screams echoed, prayers filled the cabin. But slowly, inch by inch, the jet leveled. Gasps filled the air, a miracle. Meanwhile, a camera crew had reached the CEO's home, swarming the front yard with microphones and flashing lights. The man himself hadn't spoken, his face pale, eyes locked on the news feed. But his daughter stepped forward, clutching her teddy bear. Reporters crouched, microphones extended. "What do you want to say to your dad if he can hear you right now?" One asked gently. She thought for a long moment. Then she whispered into the microphones, her voice soft but steady. "I just wanted him to find someone who could stay with us forever, maybe like a girlfriend so he's not lonely anymore. But if it's her, can she stay forever?" The clip exploded across the world in seconds. Millions shared it, hearts breaking and healing all at once. Back in the cockpit, the runway lights glittered in the distance. Emergency crews lined the tarmac. The world held its breath. Her hands tightened on the controls. For my daughter. For him. For the truth. The wheels screeched as they kissed the asphalt. The plane jolted, wobbled, then steadied. Metal groaned, smoke hissed, but they were down. Alive. The cabin erupted in sobs, cheers, disbelief. Cameras clicked wildly through windows. The woman pulled off the headset, her chest heaving. For the first time in 7 years, she exhaled. The door opened, and she stepped onto the tarmac. Flashbulbs blinded her, shouts deafened her, reporters screamed questions. "Where have you been? How did you survive? Why now?" But she ignored them. Her eyes searched the crowd until she found the only two faces that mattered. The man she once loved, and the daughter who had grown without her. The little girl broke free from the reporters, running across the runway with tears streaming. The woman dropped to her knees, arms open. The reunion was an explosion of love, raw, undeniable. The CEO staggered closer, disbelief etched across his face. He wanted to touch her, to confirm she was flesh, not spirit. She looked up at him, her voice steady but low enough that only he could hear. "I wasn't lost, I was hidden, and if the truth comes out, it will destroy everything you've built." Gasps rippled as nearby microphones caught fragments of her words. The crowd fell silent, straining to hear. She pulled her daughter close, eyes blazing with a mixture of love and defiance. And then, to the cameras, she declared, "Greater than, I didn't return to survive. I returned to reveal, and nothing, will ever be the same again." The screen cut to black. Final text appeared. Some stories don't end with survival. They begin there.